everybody. This is Marian Cowling Owen.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And today I was made to watch The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Yeah. Yes, The Long Kiss Goodnight. The is in the title. I don't think I wrote it on the board, but The Long Kiss Goodnight, of course, is the 1996 Rennie Harlin directed action comedy thing. It gets talked about as a comedy or a dark comedy in a couple of different places online, like when it's being given categories on IMDb, like tags on IMDb. One of them is dark comedy, and there are a lot of laughs in this movie. There's so I can see it, though I don't think it's intended to be a comedy.
I wouldn't say a comedy either. I think I was expecting something that was a little bit film noir, and it isn't really that.
No,
I think it has the possibility to be noir. There's this woman with a double life, and the detective who wants to be able to save her, but is just really along for the ride. So there's noir possibilities, but I think action is really what it comes down to.
Oh yeah, and it's a very specific kind of '90s action movie, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But of course, we have this is a Gina Davis starring joint with Samuel L. Jackson along for the ride as Mitch Hennessy. I want to know. So I did read a piece of trivia that Mitch was originally a white character, and I want to know, when he was a white character, was his last name still Hennessy? Because if it was, that's okay. If it wasn't, it's not as okay.
You think he had the name of a different liquor when he was white?
Right. He was Mitch Vodka or something.
Yeah, Mitch Popov.
Yeah.
I can't think of any vodka brands right now. Why can't I? Yeah.
Mitch Stolichnaya. So if you're not familiar with Rennie Harlin's work, it might be because he kind of he went on a 3-part series of failure, which led to him being relegated to television shows and B-tier movies.
Yeah, I seem to remember one about pirates.
Yes. So you and I know him from Cliffhanger. He also directed Die Hard 2.
Okay.
The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, for any Andrew Dice Clay fans out there. Directed that.
Are there Andrew Dice Clay
probably
fans?
Do incels still exist?
Yeah.
Then
fair.
yes. Yes. So he and Gina Davis were married at this time.
Do I recall that there was some partner hopping?
I don't.
Didn't he used to be with Laura Dern?
Maybe.
Or he was with Laura Dern later?
Maybe.
And it was one of those where, like, he left to shoot a movie and his partner was like, okay, bye, honey, see you soon. And then she thinks everything's fine. And then she gets a call that's like, hey, guess what? Divorce papers are in the mail. And she's completely blindsided.
Maybe. I was going to read up on it because I thought it might have some juicy bits, but then I just didn't do it. So this was a 2-part, it's not a series, but it was a sort of a back-to-back attempt by Rennie Harlin and Gina Davis to build Davis's career along with Rennie, sure, but and to sell Hollywood the female action lead. A couple of other times this was tried, but in 95, Cutthroat Island comes out, which is this big budget pirate movie with I think it's Matthew Modine is in that.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, we'll watch that on this podcast.
Bless
for sure.
that man, but he does not strike me as an action.
I have
hero.
a huge soft spot for Cutthroat Island. Here, I'm showing you now a picture of Gina Davis and Matthew Modine in Cutthroat Island.
Wow, that is not the Matthew Modine that I
shirtless,
think of.
with a tan, with long hair, sort of looking like
healthier.
Yes, he looks sort of like a proto Orlando Bloom from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
He's working that same kind of hairstyle and the sort of lean, muscular. I have a huge soft spot for that movie. I think that movie is horrible, but it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And because at the time nobody was making pirate movies. Like,
was she an actual pirate? Like,
yeah.
Bloody Anne or one of those?
I don't. I probably watched that movie 10 or 15 times, but it's been 10 or 15 years.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you. Like when that movie first came out, I saw it in the theaters. I saw it when it first sort of released onto DVD and stuff. And then when I worked at the video store in the late 90s, I probably took it home 2 or 3 times and watched it. Mm-hmm. And I would put it on like slow Sundays in the store. But it's been a while, so I couldn't tell. Just same with this movie. I watched this movie when it first came out, this movie being Long Kiss Goodnight. I apart from a couple of story beats, I didn't remember anything about this movie.
Yeah.
So Cutthroat Island, and then this. And this was Rennie and Gina working together. Cutthroat Island, historical flop. Mm-hmm. This movie also well underperformed. It was one of New Line Cinema's biggest budget movies at the time. Like before this, they were known for doing, more like Miramax type stuff, like lower risk. Like, this is the company that a few years before this did the Ninja Turtles and stuff. But they were the top tier indie place at the time. They were kind of like, what like an A24 was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
A24, not A24 now. Like it was the place that could make some interesting stuff. They had access to enough budget to so that the movie looked good. And it didn't look low budget. So this underperformed. Cutthroat Island had underperformed the year before. And there's some talk online of almost of like a tit for tat kind of thing of like, they were contracted to do Cutthroat Island, but they were only doing that to be able to do Long Kiss Goodnight, kind of thing. And then after that, in 99, Harlan teams back up with Samuel L. Jackson for Deep Blue Sea, which is a famously campy shark movie.
Is that is Saffron Burrows in that?
I don't know who that is. LL Cool J is in that.
Okay. Saffron is the British lady. You've never seen any of the things that she's in. She was in Circle of Friends, and she was in In the Name of the Father, I think.
Yes, she is in it.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen that, but I know now that I have the cast straight.
LL Cool J, Stellan Skarsgård. A guy with face tattoos just named Christos. Who played Boat Captain.
I'm sure he was in the whole movie and didn't die in the first 30 minutes.
And that was a starring vehicle for Thomas Jane back when he was gonna be a thing.
Wow. Remember that, Thomas Jane.
And then pretty much after that, Harlan is doing lower profile stuff. He did one of the versions of that Exorcist the Beginning prequel.
Yeah.
I think it's the one that is less focused on like the tribes and the locusts. It's the one that's like Stellan Skarsgård in caves with torches, going around and cowering at statues of.
I can't remember. Did we see all of those?
We saw that one for the beginning for sure, and then after that, he just kind of did television. Like he did that sort of very painfully average John Cena movie 12 Rounds. Which is not the good one, which is the Marine with Liquid Terminator in it. Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
And an amazing turn for him. He's a very flamboyant villain in that.
Yeah.
You've seen it, you just don't remember.
I've never seen him with any emotion on his face.
You've
except
seen
for there.
The Marine,
yeah.
And he just kind of goes on. He does a bunch of television. He does like I think most recently, he did a Strangers movie. The Strangers is this series of movies about these people who do home invasions and terrorize families.
That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they keep like reinventing it. They like there were Strangers movies like 10 or 20 years ago, and then they did some more, and now they're doing some more. I don't know.
No, thank you.
Anyway, like Harlan, by all accounts, a competent director. He just had a string of embarrassing failures in the 90s. And this was one of them. This wasn't a huge embarrassment, but it didn't, make its budget back. It did well on home video release, which was kind of common in the 90s. But not a hit didn't land with audiences.
Geena Davis eventually moved on, right? She's,
as far as I know,
with somebody who's not him.
Yes, hopefully, if she's available, Geena, hit me up. All right. Yeah, like, I'm sorry. There are two ladies that have been already spoken about on this podcast.
Yes.
That if Laura Dern or Geena Davis called me up,
okay,
I would have to, and I think you would be okay with that.
I think I would. I would. Yes.
Yeah.
The heart wants what it wants.
I know, right? Which is funny because neither one of those women are my type physically.
No, certainly not the things that you've told me are attractive about me that you like. Sure. They don't have any of those features.
But there's something about, they have a commanding presence.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I do find sexy about you, is you have a commanding, powerful presence.
You
are my female action hero.
I don't think so.
You are a woman who
BS.
isn't afraid to stick up for herself and represent herself and her interests, and I respect that about you.
If you say so. I don't know about that, but if you say so.
But so the other real like tidbit about this movie is that it is written by Shane Black, who is you have encountered his work because he wrote all of the Lethal Weapon movies.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm scrolling through to his. He was also an actor. He was in Predator. Is one of the things. When we watch Predator for this podcast, I will point him out to you.
Okay.
But yeah, he was a writer. He did eventually direct a Predator movie called The Predator.
Mm-hmm.
He did. His big thing was Lethal Weapon. He did The Last Boy Scout. He did all the Lethal Weapons movies. The Last Action Hero, which is a great movie, and I feel like Last Action Hero is one of those movies where when we've watched enough of these 90s action movies, we will watch Last Action Hero, because it is it's not exactly a parody, but it's like they're like lampooning.
Is it kind of the Scream of action
sort of
movies?
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes farther than Scream. It sits somewhere between Scary Movie and Scream. Like, It's not an outright parody, but they are in a lot of ways putting a focus on to these action movies, and kind of saying how silly some of this stuff is.
Okay.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was like his big one. He wrote that and directed it. Also wrote and directed Iron Man 3, which is like some people's favorite Iron Man and a lot of people's least favorite, because it's a very different kind of story. It's smaller. It's more of like an emotional journey for Tony Stark. And Nice Guys, which is also I like Nice Guys a lot. It's fun.
Which one is that? Is that Will Ferrell and?
No, that's Other Guys. Nice Guys is your boy, Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. Okay. And they play a duo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun watch. It
curious,
doesn't qualify for this podcast.
Just curious, which one of those is my boy?
Gosling.
Is he?
I don't know if he is or not. I'm just saying.
No, not really.
I feel like after Barbie, he's everybody's boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Shane Black he wrote a lot of these action movies. I saw a tidbit that said like he got paid quite a lot of money, I think, to write this movie or one of his other movies around this time, and he sort of like got not blackballed, but he got like shunned by the rest of the screenwriting community because he got like $4 million for a screenplay. Gosh. And they were like, no. And so he was just like, you know what? I'm going to piece out of action movies for a while, big budget action movies for a while. And I'm going to write some, character stuff or whatever. So yeah, Shane Black was a big hot commodity in the 80s. Wrote the Lethal Weapon series. And one of his gimmicks is that he sets things at Christmas. Lethal Weapon 1 is set at Christmas. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is set at Christmas. I think even Nice Guys has some parts that take place at Christmas. This is one of his tells, one of his shticks, is that he puts stuff at Christmas. And this movie is set at Christmas. And one of the things I said last time was that, I wanted to put this up against Die Hard to kind of see which one was the better quote unquote Christmas movie. Both of these movies are action movies that take place at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about the spirit of Christmas in either one of them.
No.
I think Die Hard is by far the better movie, just as a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
structurally, yes.
Yeah, I think Christmas is a bit more important to the plot of this movie. It doesn't play a major role, just the same way as Die Hard. You know, everybody always says, well, the only reason he was at the Nakatomi Tower was because of Christmas. He could have been there for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the tower was only empty because of the Christmas party. It could have been empty for any reason. Yeah. You're a screenwriter. You make up any reason that the tower is empty.
Yeah.
You know, well, ho, 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 you had a machine gun. Yeah, like he could have said anything else, any other witty line. You know, like that's sort of the full extent of, well, you know, the guy in the limo sings, he's listening to that Run DMC song. Like, yeah, it could have been any other Run DMC song, like Public Enemy. Like, pick a cool rap band from the 80s. It could have been any of those.
Well, and also, I don't know if you know this, but you can listen to cool Christmas songs any day of the year.
You know, and this movie is kind of on that same level, right? Like, it's taking place at Christmas. There are scenes at a Christmas play. There, she is spotted by the bad guys that then want to murder her, which we'll talk about more of that with the plot, because she's Mrs. Claus in a Christmas parade. So it's kind of the same thing. So, like, honestly, I would give it sort of a wash on in terms of, you know, which is the better Christmas adjacent movie. I think watch Die Hard if you want the better movie. Watch this if you've never seen it, because it's fun. And it's very Christmas adjacent.
It is fun. It's much funnier than most action movies are.
Yes, yeah, and that's a Shane Black thing. And we'll talk about, that's one of the things on my list to talk about when we talk about a little bit more. But we'll do the plot real quick. So Sam, is it Kane?
Yeah,
Samantha Kane. Yeah, because Sam Kane is an anagram for amnesia.
What? No, it's not. What?
You could work it out. No, I don't know.
Oh my good Lord. No.
Amnesiac.
Okay.
Is what it's an anagram for.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is. It's an anagram for amnesiac, which was like a little fun little thing. And that was actually, Sam Kane was going to be the Charlie Baltimore personality, was going to be called Sam Kane. You know, that's just, hey, I'm a writer, and sometimes I do, you know, I'm up my own ass and I do writery things just for writer lulls.
Well, I think those are only funny if you don't then tell people about them.
And I'm not sure if that's something Shane Black went around like, hey, does anybody doesn't know, it's amnesiac is if you rearrange the words, you get Sam Kane. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So Sam is a school teacher. They tell you right in the opening, I'm only 8 years old. I'm fully grown. I was birthed fully grown. Found myself on a beach, head injury, yada, 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 amnesia, yada, yada, yada. Now she was pregnant when she ended up on the beach. So now she has an 8-year-old daughter, and she is dating a dude who is very boring, but supportive and nice, and, you know, probably what she deserves after her espionage career. And she is trying to get her memory back. She's paying various detectives over time to try to find out anything about her. And it turns out she is part of a special government task force. What was it called? Chapter? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And she was presumed dead after she was supposed to be assassinated. And she was a cool spy lady with like a Jason Bourne.
I was thinking this gives me strong Jason Bourne vibes.
And for good reason, because this is legally distinct from, but loosely inspired by the Robert Ludlum Jason Bourne movie. Okay. Secret agent from a super secret government agency. Amnesia, goes over a cliff,
slowly come
into
back.
the ocean. Finds himself and slowly learns that he's a completely lethal fighting machine, etc. So very, very obviously based on, but at the time, you know, like nobody had heard of Jason Bourne. And now it's very obvious. The inspiration is worn on the sleeve. And so, yeah, the things happen. She gets spotted in a Christmas play by the guy who was supposed to have killed her, that she disfigured. He breaks out of jail and comes after her. During the lead up to this, she has been in an accident that has triggered some of her memories to start coming back very lightly. There's almost a war between her Charlie Baltimore original personality and her Samantha Kane domestic suburbanite teacher personality. As she's attacked in the home and realizes that she can fight, and she kills the guy and who's come to kill her. And about that time, Mitch Hennessy and his sidekick Trin, who have been,
we did not get enough of Trin.
Trin she was fun. They've been shaking down like businessmen with a prostitution scheme and working as detectives on the side. We're shaking down who in particular?
Rex Linn, one of my favorite character actors, aka the current Mr. Reba McEntire.
Nice,
fantastic.
Yeah, and he is. You've seen him in a bunch of stuff. In fact, he had previously worked with Rennie Harlan in Cliffhanger. Harlan is one of those guys that has some regulars. Like you notice, he's bringing him back. He brings obviously Davis is in a couple of his movies. Samuel L. Jackson's in a couple of his movies. And I like directors that do that. I like directors that have regulars like that and bring them in and out. I think sometimes they go a little too far, and it's just a little forced. Johnny Depp and Tim Burton through the 90s and the early 2000s comes to mind.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin does that with there's a lot of main actors and character actors that he does, and I think Joshua Molina is one of the ones, and he's talked about after, and because Sorkin also writes, and so after a while you just like know what he intends with the script, and and like you ask fewer dumb questions, and and so that's and then it's sort of fun to play like spot the director favorites in the movie.
And I like it. I really like it when it's just secondary characters, when it's these solid character parts, and they just have a guy that they go to for that kind of stuff. I love that. And so she starts to get her memory back. And in fact, Hennessy comes in with these leads, and so they start following those leads. After the attack in her home, she decides that the best thing to do would be to go off with Hennessy and follow these leads. In the process of following these leads, they discover the man who trained her, played by Brian Cox. His name is Nathan something. Played by Brian Cox, who also plays the mysterious guy who trained Jason Bourne in the Bourne series.
Oh gosh, really?
Yes. The head of just literally they were like,
B for B.
You remember Long Kiss Goodnight? That actor Brian Cox played basically this role. We want a guy like that. Like, well,
and then
Brian
his agent
Cox
said, actually, he's still alive.
Mr. Cox is available. Brian Cox is great because this is 1996, and Brian Cox looks to be in his 60s. Yeah. And he is still going today.
He's been in his 60s the entire time.
He looks basically the same. Yeah, like how he's had a 30-year career.
Yeah.
Like since then, he's going on 30 years since this movie, and is just still there playing the either like nice grandpa good guy in an action movie, or the secret bad guy grandpa in an action movie.
Yeah, I was Braveheart was on the other day, and I watched the beginning of it, and he plays William Wallace's uncle, and shows it has like 2 or 3 scenes, and shows the beginning, and it's like, I'll take you away, you'll learn to speak Latin, and then he leaves, and I was like, how Brian Cox, how are you not having him in more of this movie? And then I realized, it's 1995, he's not really Brian Cox yet.
Yeah, like up to this point, all I would have seen Brian Cox in was Manhunter, which is the Brian De Palma version of what would later be Red Dragon, the movie Red Dragon, of the novel Red Dragon, which would later be made into a movie Red Dragon.
I was thinking that was
Lecter, in which he plays Hannibal Lecter.
Okay.
And gives a great performance as Lecter. Like, obviously, Anthony Hopkins owned that role after Silence of the Lambs, but the cat and mouse that happens between him and the CSI guy with the beard from the 80s, the main actor on the original CSI series, Patrick
Peterson.
Patrick Peterson.
William
the guy
Peterson. Who was in The Contender.
William Peterson, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. William Peterson. They do a great back and forths, and they have I think the better version of the exchange of Will, how did you catch me? Like, well, you had certain disadvantages. Well, like what? Well, you were insane. Like, oh, like that is the best conversation I think that anyone has with Hannibal Lecter is that one, and I think the version that happens in Manhunter is better than that same scene between Norton and Hopkins in Red Dragon.
Okay.
Anyway, about this movie that we watched. So yeah, stuff happens. She gets her memory back. She dyes her hair blonde. She becomes the badass assassin again, and is suppressing Sam. And over the course of the movie, with Mitch's the last 2 acts of the movie or whatever, with Mitch's help, she sort of strikes this balance between Sam and Charlie, and she chooses to stay in Sam's life, but with Charlie as a part of it, and along the way, the evil Tim, which is a bad name for a villain.
Although they kept calling him Timothy. But even then, I was like, no, Timothy is going to be evil. It doesn't work.
Yeah, Timothy.
Played by Craig Bierko.
Yeah, who I've recognized from a lot of stuff.
Like, I think I've only ever seen... He was in the some version of The Music Man.
Sure.
Which only worked because he's sort of slimy looking, and Harold Hill is kind of slimy. But I think he only works as a bad guy or a shyster. I'm sure he's played some roles that required him to be earnest and sweet, like what's his face, Sam's husband,
Hal,
partner, whatever. But I don't think it works at all.
Yeah, and he just has that look to him.
He oozes just.
You're just like, oh, this guy is just he's a punchable face, and he's got that 90s scruff. Like 3 days hasn't shaved.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Of course, Tim kidnaps Sam's daughter, Caitlin, along the way, and wackiness ensues. And we'll talk more about bits of that, but it turns out there's a great terrorist plot that the U.S. government or a part of the U.S. government is planning. And we'll talk about that.
God, I did a full body
cringe. Yeah, let's not get bogged down in that right now. Just we'll put a pin in that for later. I was supposed to write that on the board and I forgot. Then they do the mega happy ending, and everybody's happy, and that's and Mitch gets to be on Larry King Live.
Yeah. However, if I were Charlie / Sam's partner after this, I would sleep with one eye open.
Oh yeah.
Like I would, if you ever got in a fight and had tension at home for a while, I'd be like, "Hun, I'm gonna go sleep in a locked jail cell for a week just till you calm down."
Yeah. Yes,
Once
for sure.
you've seen what she can do, you don't want to piss her off.
Yes. For sure.
Especially because in the period where she is getting her memory back, it seems like Charlie takes over and Sam doesn't really realize what she's doing.
Yeah.
And it's the dissociation that I think is particularly scary. And I guess part of her getting back into Sam's life at the end is she realized she can control both sides, and she's made peace with her dual nature, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And there's almost an interesting conversation to have here. And like, I would like not necessarily a version of this movie written by a woman, but a version of this movie that is more willing to explore this idea that like Charlie initially feels no attachment to Caitlin because she didn't quote unquote choose to have her, that no one consulted Charlie. And kind of the idea that Charlie is a separate entity inside of this body that was suppressed during the time that Caitlin was born.
Yeah, the way the movie frames it, it's almost like split personalities.
Yeah,
which I suppose it kind of is. I mean, she's diagnosed with some kind of amnesia, so I guess you lock it away. And I think split personalities actually don't work the way that they're shown in the movies.
Yes.
So, but if you think of it as the personalities don't ever talk to each other.
Yeah.
This is kind of like that.
And this is more like Charlie was literally suppressed, and who knows if she was even sort of aware, quote unquote aware. And then, as she comes back, like, is she a full-fledged personality, or is this just the person that she used to be? And Mitch even makes the point a couple times of like, that Cheetah essentially didn't make up all this Sam stuff out of nowhere. Like, it came from somewhere, all this caring and nurturing and being a teacher and all this stuff, like that was a, repressed part of her that was being given a chance to flourish when all of the other stuff, well, I think his line in the movie is, when you stopped hating yourself for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing, especially particularly with the pregnancy thing angle of, like, this, it probably isn't the first time that Charlie, in service of getting close to a male target, has had an issue like this and is probably well versed in taking care of them, because she couldn't afford any entanglement like that.
Air quotes implied there.
Yes,
folks.
yes, totally implied. But yes, but I would like an exploration of that sort of consent and choice, and how is where the movie can go exactly the same way, but there's a little more insight into Sam Charlie's, coming around to the idea, because that's essentially what happens is Charlie comes to the realization that she cares for the child because Sam cares for the child, because she is Sam and she is Charlie, and she has to make peace with all that. But it's none of that is like text. It's all subtext, and it's all implied, and it's all sort of resolved by a couple of quick action scenes.
Yeah, but the phrasing that she uses, I didn't choose this, I didn't choose motherhood.
Yeah.
In the current environment is a little chilling.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff within a few years would be very different with this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess we might as well talk about that, as we've alluded to that a couple times. So when Charlie is in this agency, 8 years prior, she's in this agency, of course, when she gets taken out. She is hunting these members of this terrorist organization, or this, the bad guys, whatever. They are Tim and a guy named Daedalus, played by
I don't remember now.
The guy from Outsiders.
Oh yeah. David Morse, who was
I can never. It's David something, and I can never remember his name.
He was on. Oh my gosh, he was on some other crime procedural.
Yeah, well, he's on a ton. He's on a ton of stuff, and he's one of those guys like we've talked about, along with the other blue-eyed guy.
Crazy guy's Neil
McDonough, who, like, when you see him and he's not a bad guy, he's going to turn,
right?
And that's what happens with this character. He is, at first she remembers him as her fiance because or was going to be, or whatever, because she was targeting him.
And she's like, I know things about him. I know that he sits to pee. He has to be a good guy. And
it's just like, what? And it turns out she knows all the things because she was tracking him because he was a target.
He was an asset.
And she had, interacted with him and Tim.
Air quotes implied there too.
Yeah. So Tim and Daedalus, he has an actual name, but I don't remember what it was, are members of this organization. Well, it turns out in the 8 years since Charlie has gone missing, the secret Black Ops agency that Charlie was a part of has become desperate for funding, and they essentially got in bed with this group. Instead of taking out these targets, they paired up with these targets.
Can't believe that.
Yes, in order to increase their funding. And the way that they decided to do this is that they saw what happened when the CIA got a lot more funding after the first World Trade Center. We now say the first World Trade Center attack, which of course was 1996.
It was minuscule in comparison.
And they even make some comments that one or more of the bombers may have been CIA assets or had CIA passports, or that in some way the CIA had facilitated this attack. And afterwards, it resulted in a large increase in their budget. And so taking after this, they have decided to stage a terrorist attack in a small town to kill 4,000 people, as they say, in order to get their funding back and their funding increased in order to deal with these terrorist threats. And they have a literal guy on ice, a frozen quote unquote terrorist.
Who I think they say they made sure to choose someone who was Muslim to make it more believable, which is just, oh dear God.
Yeah, they explicitly say we'll blow up 4,000 people and blame it on the Muslims, and they'll give us whatever we want.
Well, and there's a line somewhere about, oh, what would they spend it on instead? Healthcare? Which in the current time, that's a little chilling
well,
too.
Yeah, that you may have misread that, but that line is spoken. But so when Perkins, who is the head of this government agency, asks the president directly where their funding has gone, he says healthcare.
Oh, okay.
Not as a joke. Like I heard you kind of, react to that, and I was like, I'm not sure she perceived that. I think he's literally just saying money is being diverted from Black Ops to like Medicaid or whatever, But still, yes, still very relevant. This movie manages to make a couple of really weirdly relevant things. So so this very icky, like the only way this could have been worse is if this was in New York City and there were lots of shots of the World Trade Center in this movie. So sort of a Nostradamus effect here. And of course, famously, a lot of conspiracy theories would crop up around 9/11. So, it is sort of an interesting time capsule to look back on.
Oh, air quotes around interesting.
Yes, quite
unpleasant.
So I always at some point I always like to just ask, and I think it's a good chance for me to stop talking for a minute. What are your thoughts on this movie? Just like, did you enjoy it? What do you think of it?
Well, just to mention this, so her daughter, Caitlin, I recognize the actress. Did you?
Yeah, yes and no. I definitely recognize the actress, but I couldn't tell you from what.
Okay, well, I know her from, she played Dr. Green's daughter on ER.
Oh, okay.
And it's not really her fault because I think the character was written that way. But on ER, that girl was incredibly whiny, and I just have a knee-jerk reaction when I see her face. Not her fault. But she's still acting. Her name's Yvonne Zima, and there's several sisters in the family, and I keep seeing clips of a movie that either she did or her sister did because they look just alike. It's one of these like Hallmark Hall of Fame movies with Della Reese, and like she's a poor child in the South who's being abused, and it's like tackles all the things at once. So, but I first know her as Dr. Green's daughter. Fun fact, by the way, ER, I think, and Friends came out the same year, and both of them had characters named Rachel Green.
Wow. That is a fun fact. I'm having fun right now.
Of course you are. So anyway, so she played one of the Rachel Greens, the one that was not Jennifer Aniston. But anyway, yeah, she does fine in this. She's whiny when she's supposed to be and just scared when she's supposed to be, and that's really kind of mostly what the character requires. But anyway,
as a child acting is pretty good.
Yeah. But it was just fun to recognize the kid because I usually don't. I like I said before, I was expecting something a little bit more noir with this, and it really wasn't. And then there's this will they won't they between Charlie when Charlie resurfaces and Hennessy. And then Hennessy also has this ex-wife, the mother of his son, and there's not a will they won't they there, but that like he kind of misses the family life, and so that colors how you feel about the Charlie Hennessy thing, and there's a lot of backstory that never really pays off with much, and
though I don't really take the Charlie Hennessy thing as any serious thing, he is clearly not into it, and she is only wants the physical aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, I think the part right where she goes in, she's going to get Caitlin back, and she says something like, they're going to blow my head off, so this is the last time you'll see me looking pretty. And she kisses him. Mm-hmm. But it's very it's on the lips, but it's just a peck kind of. Yeah. And it's sort of it's more of a platonic kiss than anything.
It just seems like a Charlie thing to do.
Yeah.
I think Charlie revels in the sexual tension. Like clearly she has these other two, these Daedalus guys, Daedalus and Tim, like she has been seducing them on some level. Mm-hmm. She is clearly secret agent lady who has been using her feminine charms on men to manipulate them, and I think it's almost a little like fun jab.
I mean, if I looked like Gina Davis, I'd be using that all the time.
Yes.
But it was, like I said, it was a little bit, there were a lot of threads that weren't really tied up at the end or just made me expect more than actually happened.
Okay. Sure.
So I don't know. I didn't dislike this. Like I said, there's lots of funny one-liners, and there's always lines where I'm like, I need to write that down and use it in actual conversation. And there were a bunch this time. Of course, I didn't write them down, but then it just kind of at the end, like she's back on a goat farm, but throwing knives at things. I was like, huh, okay. I don't really know how her life is calm after this, but all right.
Well, I mean, I just took that as a balancing out of the two personalities. That like
I don't know. Her life as Sam looked pretty idyllic.
Sure, but that's not. There's a part of her that wants something more, like to throw a knife at a tree stump. I feel like though there is an alternate timeline in which this movie was a hit, and 2 years later there is the trailer starts on the idyllic farm, and you hear a phone ring, and Sam picks it up, and it's the president. And, it's like,
we need you to
Sam,
come back.
I hate to do this, Sam, but
just when I got out, they pulled me back in.
There's a terrorist, and he's holding the hostages.
Why does he sound like Nixon?
I don't know. That just sort of evolved over time.
Or is it?
He's
5
really
years later,
alternate timeline.
5 years later, it's George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Like, we need you to hunt down this man.
Strategery.
Bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden.
He's in a cave somewhere. That's all we know.
Yeah. Saddam Hussein. And then she's off on her next mission. Kind of like, it's almost like the beginning of Commando. The helicopter comes in and she's throwing logs around, and Sam, we need you back. They've kidnapped the president.
And her cute daughter gets put in peril again. Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
It could actually be very much like Commando.
And then to me, like at that point, I think the ending makes perfect sense. That she's like, here she is. She's this lethal killing machine that she will always be, but she has found peace. But at any moment, like John Matrix, she can be pulled back to her violent ways as whenever it's needed.
In this version, does she kill someone with a machete to the dick?
Probably. Okay. That would be really on brand for her, I think.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if so, then yes, we can make this alternate version.
Yeah, but I think so. One of the things I wrote up here is 90s action, and I think what you are sort of getting on there is that this is a very 90s action movie. It is. They do a happy ending. It's clean. There's room for a sequel, but it's clean. There's big action in it. Not a lot of consequences. There's a big set piece moment for this. It's a bridge between the U.S. and Canada that gets blown up, and a tanker gets rolled and slides across the bridge and stuff. So there's a set piece. There's a happy ending. There's a hateable bad guy that is also like either sympathetic or kind of hot. One or the other. And there's 4 or 5 distinct action sets. You get the farm. Or the compound at the end. You've got the driving scene.
Yeah, Sam's
house. So it's that kind of thing. It's like a series. It's really, I always think of these 90s action movies as like perfect templates for video games, like that they have these different levels of effectively in them. And it'll always have some sort of ridiculous thing. The further you go into the 90s, the more extreme sports it will become. So in this, she ice skates down a frozen river. Yeah. So what was supposed to happen in that scene, at least according to IMDb, is when she gets to the end. So what happens in the movie is she is she's gone back to her to Charlie has gone back to Sam's house to get a bracelet which has a key on it, which will get her access to her spy go bag that has money and passports and a way out of the country. And she goes back, and Mitch is helping her at this point. And she tells Mitch, you're the lookout. I'm going to go in and get it. And her family's at the Christmas play. And she gets a little distracted looking through the scope at her daughter in the Christmas pageant. And, now here's Mitch honking the horn. They're coming. Mitch takes off and they chase him. They being these government agents who are now, of course, trying to stop Charlie because she knows that they're working with this bad guy organization and can bring it all crashing down for Operation Honeymoon crashing down.
And I love that she finally puts it together, and it's at Niagara Falls, which is like, I feel like that was an old connection even at the time.
Yeah.
Apparently Niagara Falls used to be the place to go on your honeymoon. Does anyone do that anymore? I don't like when my grandparents were married, that was the thing to do. Not now, and probably not in the 90s anymore either. So that's just like, oh, who wrote this? Somebody very old.
Well, it's in 96. Like, that was probably still a pretty hot thing. I mean,
I don't know.
Jim and Pam got married at Niagara Falls. Our the standard for anything.
If it happened on The Office, then it's fine.
It happened in The Office.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what happens is that there's a car chase with Mitch through this idyllic Pennsylvania town, and there's just guns ablazing out the window of this car, and Mitch is ducking and diving and avoiding the gunshots, and she comes out of the house and they're gone, and she sees him going down the road. She picks up her ice skates as she had been teaching her daughter earlier to ice skate. And she sort of speed skates down this river because, of course, she knows the town and she knows where the road they're on is going to lead. She speed skates down this river, frozen river, and ends up the car kind of crashes off to the side down onto the river, and now it's coming for her. And blam, 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 she shoots all of the people inside of the car, and it skids to a halt. Action scene over.
There were, like you say, this doesn't leverage Christmas per se in a very explicit way, but it definitely leverages cold weather, which
northern winter,
which I kind of appreciate. Like there's some cleverness to that. Like there's a point where they're at the trains, they're going to take the train to meet what's his face, Brian Cox, and they're at the train station and they get ambushed. And they head up. They run away from the bad guys, and they go up, which didn't seem smart, but okay. And then
they didn't have a choice.
They're on the third floor, and they jump out the window, and there's a frozen pond beneath them. And earlier there was the sign that said, "Don't get on the pond, thin ice." And I was like, "Aha!" Foreshadowing.
Which as a person watching a movie, that's foreshadowing. Right. But within the context of the movie. That's an interesting bit of foreshadowing that Charlie is reemerging because Sam is taking in her surroundings and committing that stuff to memory, as someone like Charlie would never be in an enclosed building without
knowing
an escape route.
Just automatically. Yeah.
And so Charlie is seeing that and remembering because now Sam is starting to be more aware of her surroundings, which I thought was fun.
So they jump out and she shoots holes in the ice as they fall, and so they can go into the water and not slam on the ice and crack their skulls open. And then there's one of the other times Sam is skating with Caitlin, and Caitlin is trying to skate and can't do it very well and falls and hurts her wrist. And Sam has this Charlie comes out basically and she's, life is pain, you'll do this, and blah, 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 blah. And then that comes back at the end. Charlie has been shot and she's slumped over and she's nearly dying of her injuries, and Caitlin comes back and gives her the same speech. And finally, Charlie, which is fun. And Charlie's like, "Okay, let's go," and then seems to recover and is totally fine.
Well, not totally fine,
but they leverage winter in a really interesting way throughout a lot of the movie, which I enjoyed.
Yes, and now while that digression was productive, I will finish what I was talking about. So I was telling about that ice skating thing so that I could tell you about talking about crazy extreme sports action pieces.
Okay.
And I was explaining the river ice skating because how that was supposed to end as opposed to her just shooting the 3 guys dead. She was supposed to do a triple axel.
What?
And while flying through the air, shoot the 3 guys dead.
Okay, that's too much.
Yes. And apparently, because of the cold weather, they were filming, I think, this in Toronto. Because of the cold weather, the harnesses were not cooperating, and the lifting rig and stuff just wasn't cooperating, and so they couldn't get the motion. And they tried to green screen it, and that didn't work either. So they just changed it to, it'll just be just as badass if she just like headshots the guys 1, 2, 3. Yeah, but yeah, she was supposed to like. And this will probably be like a little bit of like a John Woo influence of like, because he's always got a character with 2 guns, like spinning around and shooting and taking people out. Yeah, so that's how that was supposed to end.
A triple axle,
double axle, triple axle, an axle of more than one rotation.
Oh my
yes,
this is not long after Tanya Harding was one of the only women in the world who could do a triple axle.
And coming out in '96, this would have been around the '96 Olympics, which were Summer Olympics, but would have been Olympics adjacent.
To me, like, I've never been good at ice skating, and now my ankles kill me for a week after I even try. So just the fact that she could skate down the pond with any speed, that's badass enough. The any sort of jump and spin would have put it over the top.
Yes, it was, but that is one of those, like I said, '90s action things of like other movies. It's a skateboard.
Yeah.
It's a jet ski. It's someone somehow gets on a street luge for half a scene or something. This and so that's sort of the '90s action movie checklist, and also you just mentioned another one of the '90s action movie checklists is somebody jumping out of a window as an explosion goes off behind them, or jumping out of a door or whatever as an explosion goes off behind them. Big in the '90s. So that this movie is a very it's right in there. And I'm saying all that to put all that in your head for when we do watch Last Action Hero.
Okay.
And you're seeing these Arnold movies, which Arnold is in Last Action Hero, which is he is in a lot of ways directly parodying himself in that movie. But yeah, that kind of stuff that, and there's, there are great other scenes in other movies, like we briefly mentioned Other Guys. There's a great scene in that with Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock, where they're playing these like super cops that can't do any wrong, and they're standing up on top of like a 10-story building, and they're so convinced of their own invincibility that they jump off aiming for the bushes and just splat on the sidewalk and die, because they've bought into their own propaganda.
Oh dear.
And they play My Hero while they're jumping off, freaking Foo Fighters. There goes my, and there's slow motion, The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, with their legs kicking as they So very '90s action movie vibes, like right dead in the middle of the decade, right when this sort of stuff was really peaking, and I think this would sort of really peak with the Matrix a few years later in '99, and sort of that would add its whole new twist with the slow-mo and stuff. But yeah, '90s action movies is quite a journey to go on, and this is definitely hitting all the tropes that it needs to hit. The other thing that is part of a '90s action movie is the cool one-liners, right?
Yeah.
And this is a separate entry, but does fall into the '90s action movies. So they have some pretty cool one-liners in here. I was trying to pull some of them up. One of them is, let's see, where was it? There's just little back and forths between Charlie and Mitch, Sam and Mitch. There's one where Charlie says, were you always this stupid, or did you take lessons? He goes, I took lessons.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, like just these fun little back and forths. Mitch gets attacked and he gets kicked in the balls, and after the after that, they're looking for their next lead because they fled from Nathan, who we would turn out to know was on their side, but they weren't sure that he was. And in that struggle, Hennessy gets kicked in the balls. And when they're in the car and they're thinking about where to go next, she is thinking about going to what we would eventually find as Daedalus's farm, because she has a letter that essentially says, "Hey, this is my, what it's coded to say to the agency, this is my target, and I'm closing in on him." she thinks it is her going out to this farm to
meet her
actual fiance. And when they get in the car and they're looking for a next step, she says, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Meaning, we're going to go pursue this letter and the address in this letter. And Mitch says, "I hope not, because I'm thinking how much my balls hurt."
Yeah.
And there's just tons of little stuff like that. I wish I could find more of them.
Oh gosh, and that reminds me that Brian Cox has several guns on him, like one in the hip, one in the ankle, whatever, and he's going over and he's like, and one next to little Walter, which often gets missed because men don't want to put their hands on another man's crotch or something.
Yeah.
Just
most men are reluctant to inspect another man's groin.
It's so like it's just delivered so matter of factly. But like you feel like there's some backstory there. Like how many times has he tested this hypothesis? Like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Then it pays off because eventually Gina Davis is able to get a gun from. Yeah,
there's a great Tim has a great line. There's a henchman who's calling in that he's lost the truck basically.
Yeah.
That has the bomb in it that's part of their terrorist plot. And the henchman is like, "She's got the truck. I'm hurt really bad. I think I'm dying." And he goes, "Okay, continue dying. Out. Over and out." Like just all of the characters have that cool factor. Sometimes which is reserved for the hero, just for the hero, for the Arnold. But because this movie is a bit of more of an ensemble, even though it's clearly a Gina Davis vehicle, it's a bit more of an ensemble, So, I'm trying to see. Let's see. IMDb has a few. There's a great exchange where they're both captured, and Mitch says to her, "Sam, I'll be waiting for you to come rescue me." She goes, "I'll be there in a minute."
Yeah.
Because he understands the dynamic of this relationship.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if IMDb has any fun ones. I know, because there was a ton of them.
She remembers she's in the middle of prepping dinner as Sam.
Yeah.
And she remembers her knife skills all of a sudden, and she's chopping these vegetables like crazy. I mean, she's like Gordon Ramsay on speed there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she throws an onion or a tomato or whatever at the cabinet and throws a knife right after it, and it catches it in the wall, and she just looks around. She goes, "Chefs do it."
Yeah.
And I expected that to happen at the end too.
Yeah.
Where she throws the knife at the stump or whatever. No, chefs do it.
They do get the payoff of that. She does the chefs do it another time with when the one-eyed guy comes to kill her.
Yeah.
And she breaks his neck, and she looks at Hal, her boyfriend, and goes, "Chefs do that."
Yeah.
There's Charlie has a I don't know if this is true or not, but there is a claim on IMDb that Gina Davis as Charlie is the first female protagonist in an action movie to ever tell someone to suck her dick. Like, okay. She has another good little dick burn when Tim pulls a knife on her, and she says, "Oh, honey, only 4 inches."
Yeah. Oh, and he says, "Oh, you'll feel it."
Yeah.
I feel there's been someone else who said, "Suck my dick."
Yeah. But I mean, like after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Lori Petty at some point did that.
Oh, probably, yeah. But the claim that she's the first, she broke the ground. There's a great line where Mitch says that he wants to go in onto the compound when they're going to rescue the Caitlin, the daughter, because he's much better up close. And she goes, "Oh, honey, you couldn't hit a lake if you were standing on the bottom."
Yeah,
like you're that bad. Yeah, but yeah, bunch of fun lines, one-liners. Yeah, like right before death, and she does the thing of promising someone how they're going to die and then delivering on it. Yeah, just great.
I think that adds to not exactly a noir feeling, but maybe kind of a screwball. Not exactly. I don't know. The whole movie doesn't feel like a screwball comedy, but there is that sort of a rat-a-tat of 30s and 40s movies, the snappy dialogue between various people. That it's a fun element. I don't know if it fits into a certain genre or what.
It fits in. Honestly, I would say it fits into the 90s action genre. Like that's the thing of that back and forth. Having a hero and a villain riffing at each other at various times, and that happens several times in this movie. That stuff is just so 90s, and it's 80s too. But like that, when I think about 90s action movies, that's the kind of stuff I think about. I think about a charismatic villain and a confident hero, charismatic hero, go quipping back and forth at each other, like just fun stuff like that. But yeah, I know what you're saying about the some of the stuff. Yeah, when like a hard boiled detective and the mouthy dame, kind of thing. Like, and they go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, it's got, you imagine, like Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah. But I think we probably talked about Long Kiss Goodnight as much as it deserves to be talked about. The only other thing in this, keep this, make this answer as long or short as you want. Was Charlie in her whole getup? She cuts her hair, dyes it platinum, bleaches her hair. It's like a short cut, kind of like the lady, the female Russian in Rocky IV has. She puts the smoky eye, and the dark lipstick, makeup. and like, is she a cool female hero? Like, is that in the same way that like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando has the ammo belts on, and he paints his face with the black lines, and he's got the rippling muscles. Like, is she ever is that a cool look, do you think?
Yes. I mean, yes. Gina Davis is a cool hero.
Oh yeah.
As Dottie Hinson wearing a baseball skirt. Like,
yes.
There's no universe in which Gina Davis is not cool.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that's a very cool look. She's got, at one point she's wearing stripped down to a tank top, and she's clearly got, muscles.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sam was getting in some jazzercise workouts or something. She did not let herself go soft.
Even though she complains about Charlie complains that Sam went soft. She's like, look at the size of my butt, and it's not.
I was like,
you're like a size 2 or something.
Yeah, don't even. Yeah, your butt's perfect.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but she's not like, she's not Lara Croft. Like, she's not wearing a bikini. She's not. It's not. She doesn't seem like she was designed to be titillating.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, and I think that's cool because when she's in her like go gear to go at the compound where her daughter's being held, she's in like full head to toe sensible, not fully tactical gear because they didn't have a chance to stop at like the tactical gear shop.
Not like in Commando.
Not like in Commando. But yeah, she's got a cool look, all black with the blonde hair and the smoky eye and all that. Yeah, and that's why I think that there is a world where they wanted to make this a reoccurring character and, into a series, because they do give her that moment of like cool action hero with a look and, a recognizable silhouette kind of thing. Yeah. And so, I do lament the lack of this franchise forming. We got like 6 Jason Bourne movies, including a prequel. Like, we could have had one more Long Kiss Goodnight movie instead of one of those, maybe.
Well, I'm sure we could work up an action figure out of a Barbie for you if you want.
For sure. Yeah. Work on that. on that. Get right on that. But I think that's Long Kiss Goodnight. Fun movie. It is no more superior as a Christmas movie, as a Christmas adjacent movie than Die Hard. Definitely watch it on Christmas if you haven't seen it as we did. But yeah, I think it's I'm still in search. I need to watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and some of his other movies to see if they do. Is Shane Black just a guy who sets stuff at Christmas, or can he make the elusive Christmas action movie? I guess I also need to watch that one that just came out with The Rock. Red One. It's got that's J.K. Simmons and The Rock in a Christmas action movie.
Wild.
Man, that might be
Bodyguards. I think
that might be the definitive one. Oh man, I'll check that out as soon as I can.
I don't know. Well, even if you're lukewarm on the fact of whether this is a Christmas movie, if you like me are stuck in the South and you miss actual northern winters, watch it for that. For just like the winter weather porn. There's frozen ponds, there's snow, there's snowstorms. Like, it's all great.
It's very clearly all like real, because when they're outside, they are breathing.
Yeah.
Very heavy, visible breath.
Yeah. Well, it's in Toronto, I think they said. It's real cold. Yeah.
Oh, the last thing we didn't mention is like super cool soundtrack.
Yes, we were listening to the song at the end. Like, who is this? Yeah. And it's Tracy Bonham. Right. Who I only know from the song Mother Mother. which was very angsty and fantastic. And as a teenager who had problems with my mother, as every teenager does, I thought it was great.
But
then Nena Cherry, who's heard from either of them in a long time, but they're great at the time.
But it also has a great mix of old songs. It has Elvis Presley doing Santa Claus is Back in Town.
Yeah, a lot of Christmas
Let
standards.
It Snow by Dean Martin. Yeah, Jingle Bells is in there. And they have what's the is it Muddy Waters? Yeah, Muddy Waters. With the one of Mitch's gimmicks is that he sings everything that I'm going downstairs to put on the.
I actually thought that was kind of brilliant. I might need to start doing that.
So they have that song in there, of course, because that's
I'm
the
taking
song.
the milk out of the fridge. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Now I'm putting it back. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they've got Santana in there. I think they've got Lady Marmalade is in there.
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye is in there. So yeah, like it's one of those soundtracks you could just pick up, and it's just this mix of like 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s music and Christmas music, a little bit of Christmas music in there. Yeah, and like just play it start to finish, and it's just fun.
I feel like I need to get that. It'd be fun.
For sure.
Well, folks, we would love to know what you think of this. Is it a Christmas movie? What is your favorite Christmas action movie? Mm-hmm. Your opinions on Die Hard, welcome, I suppose. And I don't know, what would your cool action hero dress up as if there was an action figure? I don't know. You can let us know about any of it. You can reach us in a couple different ways. Our handle's the same for all of them. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can email us at gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook. Also on Facebook, there'll be links to our latest episodes. We have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode up. We are also on YouTube, and it's at YSMY Podcast. The at is very important. Our next episode I am hosting, and it's finally time. I'm going to show Dave a movie that he actually has seen, but not as many times as I have. We're going to talk about Newsies.
Mm-hmm.
Time to arise and seize the day. Apparently. We're going to talk about newsboys in the 1800s, singing, dancing labor activists. I mean, what more could you want?
I can't think of anything.
There's
more.
Nothing really. It's the peak. It's the peak. We're gonna start 2025 with Newsies. Nice. Hold on to your caps. Yep. Actually, Dave has the perfect cap.
I'll wear mine
for this
while we watch it.
Yeah. Yes. So tune in next time for Newsies. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.